For today's video, we are going to go through the steps required to paint a car outside. This car behind me, I painted it in this tent garage here. So I did have the luxury of having some cover over it in case it started to rain or something like that. But there's no sides on it, so basically it's an outside paint job. If you're painting a car outside, as I did, I'm going to take a guess that you're probably wanting to do it on a budget. You're not wanting to invest a lot of money in an older car, as is the case here. So if this car that's in this video had required no body work at all, this would be a $200 paint job. I spent $52 on a can of Tremclad rust paint, metallic paint off the shelf. A gallon of automotive paint would have cost me about $450 to $500 in Canada in the fall of 2019. In addition to that, I spent $115 on a gallon of clear coat and hardener. So we're looking at about $200. That's obviously just the paint and the clear coat. I'm going to put links to a series of videos below this video. Down there that'll be related to this project that I undertook, because this car did require a lot of body work, and the links to all those videos will be down below. Before I apply the primer, we're just going to do a quick walk around the vehicle here and have a look at all of our body work. So I'll be spraying this with the gray primer next. I got a stick in here because I'm letting that just dry out. A little bit of body fill I just applied. This patch here, I don't think I showed before, there was a big, huge scrape in it there. A dent and a scrape. Front wheel well, did a little there. And I was hoping to remove the headlights before painting, make it a little easier, less that I would have to mask, but turns out it's more work to remove that front bumper. Got a dent there, and there was a big gouge down here. It's like somebody had sprayed plastic right over I don't know what they were spraying, but anyways, it was all hardened and had to do that. Here is our rear passenger side. This is the side that required major work. Anyways, figured I'd do a quick walk around and spray all those sections with primer and get ready to paint. There was a lot of nicks and bangs on the car. Got rid of most of them. Overall, for a $200 paint job, I'm pretty pleased. There was way too much body work to be done to try to blend it in. There was a big scratch there. And we're going to go around here. There's a lot of body work here. You might look at something like this, as I do now, and see, I really should have got fussier here, but as I said, older vehicle, paid $1,600 for it, used it for a year already. I've gotten my money's worth out of it, and really the only reason I got involved in this project was because it needs a vehicle inspection, which in Canada, part of the vehicle inspection is the body, and there can't be any holes in it, and there was rust, severe rust over here and big holes. So I think you get the general idea. I'll just, and then up above, finish this little walk around, I guess. So I put about 3 or 4 coats of primer on here. The dry time on this is pretty quick. I'd say about probably a half an hour. If you want to verify if it's dry, don't touch an area like that. See if you can find an area that's not going to be visible when you're done. And like I said, I think it was 4 coats, because I'm going to paint this car with Tremclad rust paint, which is, I think, basically the same as Rustoleum. So it's a cheap paint, but it's good. It's a metal paint, and the only thing with it is the dry time is about 4 hours. So I don't want to not have enough primer and for the paint to be seeping in here and have to put an extra coat of the Tremclad on, because it takes so long to dry. Basically all I'm going to do is we're going to mask over the windows and everything, get this thing ready to paint. I'm going to use this stuff. Usually I use newspaper. Because of the drying time of the paint, I don't want to have newspaper getting like moist overnight or whatever. So I'm going to try to use this. $12 Canada for a big roll of it. So after we mask it, I'm going to give it a little sanding with a fine grit paper, scuff up the paint. I'm going to use 150 grit, just enough to give the paint a means of better adhesion to the existing paint. Gonna mask this area. We'll fast forward through it. So the masking job is complete. There's not a heck of a lot I can tell you as far as any tips or tricks. It's just a long, monotonous job. I'm gonna guess that I've been at this for about 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours. At any rate, there would always be probably some little part you forgot. I'm gonna put the camera in the background here and just videotape the whole painting process, and my editor can fast forward through the whole thing. It's now the following day. This car is completely dry. I painted it last night. I think it was roughly 8 p.m. when I finished. Now before I went to work this morning, I come out and checked it out, and that was roughly 8 o'clock this morning, and it was completely dry. I could have given it a coat of paint then, but I had to go to work. So I'm going to put another coat on now. Times like this, I noticed this little area where I got a little lazy, and I didn't really bother to put any spot putty in there. But right now, I'm just going to give it a little bit of a sanding, kind of just a little something like that. And then I'm going to use a very light grit sandpaper. I'm not even going to bother with the spot putty. As I said, I'm not getting too fussy with this car. Otherwise, it's basically ready for a second coat. It's always a good idea, if you can, to paint one part of the vehicle just to make sure you want to go with the color. And considering that this is off-the-shelf Tremclad rust paint, that's pretty darn close to the existing color. This portion of the video, I'm actually making 4 months after I finished painting that car. And by the way, there's been absolutely no problems with the clear coat or anything like that. So it looks good so far. But I want to mention before I forget, if you're going to take on a project like this, you absolutely have to buy yourself a half-decent respirator, because the fumes from this kind of stuff are really strong. But I want to show you something here to keep in mind. Is if you're buying these off-the-shelf paints, like we're doing here with the Rustoleum or Tremclad, whatever brand name you get, it's automotive paints that obviously are specifically designed to be sprayed. Now, I want to show you about the consistency of this paint. Over here on the left, you can probably see how thick that is. That's a little can of paint that I bought just because it was on sale at a really good price. I think this was down to like less than $10. So I bought it because in the spring of this year, I'm going to paint a little pop-up camper I have, and I don't really care what color it's going to be, so it was cheap. Now, unfortunately, since the 4 months since I stored the aluminum paint, something's happened here. You can see the globs in it. I must not have hammered down the cap tight enough, but you can still see what I want to show. See how thin that is? I did not have to use paint thinner when I spray painted the car, because that's so thin, which was great. So I didn't have to add any thinner to that. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you get a darker color, like what's over here on the left, you might end up having to add paint thinner. Just mess around with it and get the consistency. And let's just see if I can show you another way here. See, this is really thick. Now, that's no big deal. As I say, I'll just put some paint around that when I go to paint the pop-up trailer. Anyways, just wanted to illustrate that. I'm going to paint over the Tremclad with this clear coat. I had already bought this when I was planning on using an expensive paint, and I've decided to go ahead and put it over the Tremclad. If I have any horrific results, like it starts peeling the paint off or something, I will let you know below the video. Look for comments. I'll put all sorts of asterisks to draw your attention to the fact that if this doesn't work out well for me. And like I said, this is a project for me, so it's kind of more of an experiment on an old car. So I'm hoping for the best. The Tremclad paint does say don't use lacquer or paints with strong solvents. This is a urethane, so I'm hoping this is going to work out. They provide me with a little mixing cup. Make sure, before I go to that, you read your instructions. You're going to want a respirator. This is strong stuff, and there's all sorts of warnings about it on the data sheet that they gave me with it. There's little instructions on the side, 8 to 10 psi for an HVLP gun. It also says somewhere for a standard gun. Anyways, and you got dry times, 8 hours at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Anyways, read that stuff over. The little mixing thing, this goes with a 4-to-1 ratio between the hardener and the clear coat. If they give you a little handy container like this, so you go to the 4-to-1 here. And like, say for instance, if I wanted to mix this amount, which they have as a 4 reading, I would put this much of the clear coat in and then go to the next 4 up here for the amount of hardener. If I want to mix this much at the 5 mark, I put that much clear coat in, and then I go up here to the next 5, and then I fill this amount of hardener. Anyways, we'll mix this up and see how it goes. Eye protection and a respirator. time to remove all of the masking tape and plastic. When the time comes, you're going to want a plastic scraper, something like this. No product placement as usual. This happens to be the package, the product that I ordered. Got it off of Amazon. I think this was $20 and a whole raft of plastic blades like this in there. If you have an area, as I have here, where you have to stick something back on, which is the Chrysler emblem in this case, you're going to want to use some kind of a transparent automotive adhesive, like what I'm going to do here. So first I'm going to scrape all this crap off, and then I'm going to glue that emblem back on. To keep that emblem from lifting off there while the glue dries, I had to get a little bit imaginative. You might run into something like that too. Just lay some weights against it to keep it in place. The Paint a Car Outside project is complete. I have orange peel over the whole surface of the car. As I mentioned, that was something I decided just to accept because of the conditions that you have to put up with when you're painting a vehicle outside. I'm going to actually I'm under my tent garage here right now. I'm going to move this out in the light so maybe you can see that. I suspect that this is going to come out, the orange peel anyway, all over the surface there. But I'll move it outside. You might see. I want the viewers to be able to see what you'll end up with in case you decide to go this route. As I say, this doesn't bother me any, but if it's something that would bother you, then this is not the way to go. It is now January of 2020. Turns out I mentioned I had concerns about the clear coat over the Tremclad. I wasn't sure if there was going to be any issues there. Turns out there haven't been any issues at all. I probably should have ran this car through a car wash before I did this. This car hasn't been washed since I painted it, and I don't want to keep going on about the orange peel, but I'd hate to see somebody go through all the effort of painting their car and being disappointed because they had orange peel. As I said, didn't care about that because of the conditions I was painting this car under. But I will show, I think you can see it here. There's the orange peel I was talking about. It's all over the surface of the car. From a distance, you don't notice that at all. I might do a video next summer Here's, I'm going to show you my son's little beater car. See the difference there? That's really smooth. I might paint that little car and try to do it and avoid the orange peel. If you want to see a video on that, comment down below. I'll make it. Otherwise, I'll just paint the car. Anyways, that's what I wanted to show you. So you can see it there, right? Anyway, I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching.